Hey, team players, welcome back. Today is going to be an awesome day. We're doing a live draft here on DraftKings because Underdog still doesn't like me, and God knows why. But here's the long story short. We're doing high-end quarterbacks. We're going to make an amazing draft here, looking at some of the recent studies that say maybe it is worth to cut that check for the high-end quarterback. But you guys know Bob and I, there's no way we're doing high-end quarterback and high-end tight end. Let's see what happens in today's live draft.
What it is. There's
it
Joe.
is, and in today's Millionaire Maker, man, Bob. So excited!
I gotta tell you this, Joe. I did a draft yesterday that you would not be proud of, on Underdog, and it is it's actually a pretty fun draft. You're gonna say like, oh, was that like, why did you do that? Like, what was the reasoning or the correlation behind that? I'm gonna read you this team. And I know, as everybody comes moving in, hopefully it logs in. Maybe I won't be able to read it. We'll see. I just think it's interesting to say the very minimum, and I want to show it to you because it was in a schnauzer, a $3 schnauzer, nothing too crazy. Started off nice.
All right.
Started off real nice. I had the 5th pick, took Puka, great pick. Coming back around, next 2 picks, Jonathan Taylor, Kyron, not bad. Mm-hmm. 4th round coming around, Jameson Williams. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something that I don't normally do. And I built a 2-2-1 for both the Niners and the Lions. 1 wide receiver and 1 tight end apiece. So I went 2 tight ends at a little bit of a premium there. And I got both of the quarterbacks, both the tight ends, and we don't have a bad team. So I think that, we're going to do a high-end quarterback today.
And we got the 2nd pick, so that could be Allen.
Fortunately for us, most of these high-end quarterbacks do not have a high-end tight end, but I would like to, just throw it out there that I do think that there's a good, decent value right now. Knowing the lay of the land, knowing that things are constantly shifting and changing, that the stack of Sam Laporta and JMO with Goff and the stack of either Pearsall and Jennings with Kittle and Purdy, especially if you're sitting in this picks 1 through 5, I think those are 2 stacks to kind of keep your head on a swivel about, because those specific stacks are really highly correlated to touchdown production. So when I say that, is that those players, specifically Jennings, I would say for the Niners, and Kittle, and then JMO and Laporta, if Goff is having a good day, it is very likely that those 2 players will be supported. Same goes for Purdy. So I do think that, as you look at the lay of the land, that those stacks and similar stacks like them, I think are nice to push, especially knowing that guys like Purdy, guys like Goff are sitting there in the 9th, oftentimes 8th, 9th, 10th rounds of both Underdog and DraftKings drafts. So it's something to keep your head on a swivel about. And I did want to also wear a high-end quarterback and a mid-range quarterback. Jamar Chase. Jamar's here. I'm not even going to fight that.
We're taking Jamar.
But I will say this. We had great news. So not good news if you're a Steeler fan, but we were talking about this on the show on Monday, and you were fighting me on it a little bit and saying it wasn't going to happen. It happened. George Pickens is now a Dallas Cowboy. And I'm really curious how that's going to affect CeeDee Lamb's value here in the post-draft world of this, and see if because CeeDee was very much being taken 5th overall most times. I'm curious to see if Puka ends up sliding ahead of him. He doesn't. But I think that get of Pickens combining with Lamb is going to really, I think it could potentially skyrocket Dak Prescott's value. And I think that if you were drafting prior to that trade with the intention that that trade was going to happen, I think Dak's going to climb, because right now he's in like the 13th round being drafted, kind of where the Tuas and the Michael Penixes of the world are being drafted. I still think that with that trade, I think that he could go up two, maybe one round. I think it's interesting. I think it's real interesting. Do you take a Steelers wide receiver here, family? I think right now, as we look at all things,
I think Metcalf jumps up the board.
I think Metcalf does climb a little bit, but I also think that a guy, that Joe was talking about last year, that's kind of been forgotten, Roman Wilson, is one of those players that now will probably be thrown into a lot of drafts at the back end. He'll probably rise and climb depending on.
In this one.
The thing, I mean, if they go out and get Aaron Rodgers, there's a chance that Alan Lazard will follow Aaron Rodgers. There's a chance that, other pieces could come along with Aaron Rodgers that could
No, don't even try to say that. I don't want to hear that sentence even be.
It was said because it's true. Because we know what Aaron Rodgers is. We know who Aaron Rodgers likes to throw to. However, knowing that Roman Wilson cost the Steelers a decent amount of draft capital last year, knowing that Van Jefferson isn't much, and knowing that Calvin Austin is just, I mean, he's a player. I mean, he's just a guy. I think that there's reason to believe that, like we were talking about prior to this trade and in our early best balls, that Roman Wilson wouldn't be a bad get. I mean, he was hurt all last year, didn't play much, didn't play at all, I don't believe. And so if you're looking for like a late round target with a little bit of upside, you're probably going to see Roman Wilson start to go in the 16th, 15th rounds of some of these drafts, knowing that he's the Steelers' number 2 wide receiver, potentially going into the season. I think it's an interesting get.
Roman Wilson will be on this roster. I mean, that's the way it will be.
Knowing we have Chase here, I have seen so many Chase and Bucky teams that I want to kind of try to avoid.
This is going to be Josh Allen, dude. We're honoring the today going high-end quarterback. This will be Josh Allen. You have not seen very many Josh Allen teams.
Listen, Allen should be.
You're not getting Chase and Bucky either.
He should be the 3rd round pick, not the 2nd round pick. Trust me on it.
All right, well, if JT's on the board, I'm taking JT then.
Because if we lose out on Allen, we can still take Lamar, and it's no really big skin off the back. Quite frankly, with Jamar, I'd rather have Lamar, to be honest with you, because there's a little bit of correlation there that you don't get with Josh Allen. So just being quite honest about that. All right. Who's on the board here?
So Scary Terry, Higgins, Hill, Wilson.
Take Garrett Wilson.
Or Caleb Williams, Cook.
Huh?
Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
You said Garrett Wilson?
Yeah. Why'd you say Caleb? Take Garrett Wilson. Why'd you say Caleb Williams? What are you even talking about?
I keep calling him Caleb instead of Kyron, man. That's my bad. I keep messing it up. See, I'd rather have Josh Allen, though, rather than Lamar.
The other reason I mean, you're getting a little bit of correlation with Garrett Wilson, so take Josh Allen because you're still getting that divisional correlation with knowing that there's a chance.
Yeah, then we throw Fields in it later, and we're all good.
And ball out. Yeah, I mean, Fields with Josh Allen and then be done at quarterback, I am absolutely okay with something like that, knowing that Fields, we're looking for Fields' ceilings and not Fields' floors. So if we target Fields, say in like the 8th round, if he's still around there, I'm okay with something like that. Absolutely. Family, you took Spears in the 12th round, forgot how good he was the last few games of the year, well worth the risk. And I think, knowing his age, but knowing that he also doesn't have pieces of ligaments inside of his body, it is a risk. But one of the things that we need to understand about Spears and in general about Tennessee's running back room is that Tennessee's running back room isn't that good. Last year Spears was one of our targets. Obviously, Spears gets injured again. But Spears has the potential, when used properly, to be a really good player in PPR. We saw him put up 20-point games at the end of last season, which is absolutely tremendous to think about that was coming out of Tennessee's backfield. Now, is he going to run between the tackles often? Probably not. That still belongs to Tony Pollard. And what we know about that running back room is that when they're behind, that was not a good look for Tony Pollard. Now, the question is, do you see them as being ahead in most of the games this year? And I think most of the viewing audience and most of the fantasy community doesn't see that. They're going to be that most of the fantasy community sees them as being behind a lot. So if they're behind a lot and they need to come back, there's reason to believe that a guy like Tajay Spears in that running back dead zone, no man's land of, the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th round is a good option. Would I want him over a guy like Bashal Tutin? Probably not, because they went out and got Bashal Tutin with some decent draft capital. He's healthy. He has all of his ligaments, and I'm okay with something like that. But Spears is still.
You're definitely okay if you have ligaments.
I'm definitely gonna still sprinkle in Spears here and there when I don't feel, when I'm rolling one of these quarterback teams that is a high end quarterback and I'm not wading through the muck and the mire of that quarterback area. I'm going to take a few stabs at players that I might not normally take a stab on if I'm taking quarterbacks in that round. Your Spearses, your Shaheeds, players that have been injured last year that are coming back from significant injuries, but have shown promise and the potential for 20-point games. Because what I'm looking for is, does this guy have the potential to outscore anybody that I'm rolling out in my starting lineup? Or does this guy have the potential, if healthy, to crack my starting lineup? Because if I don't think that he could beat out Garrett Wilson, if I don't think he could beat out Jamar Chase, why would I take him? Like that's kind of the process to go through, is that, oh yeah, I could take him for a bye week. That's great and all. But if the worst possible thing happens and one of your high end players gets hurt, you don't want to be as done as you can be. You want to still be in it. So that's kind of the way that I'm thinking about here. Family, you said running backs were taken early. I won't touch them again for a few rounds. Genty, Cook, Spears are my only three. I don't think that's terrible. One of the things to think about, though, with Cook is that there's probably going to be a decent touchdown regression. But I don't think it's going to be as high as the Ray Davis lovers think it's going to be. When we think about Cook, one of the things that we said in the 2023 season was that he needs more red zone looks. So what did the coaching staff do? In 2024, they gave him more red zone looks, which they took from Josh Allen. They didn't take it away from other running backs. They took it away from Josh Allen. When Cook was on, what was he doing? He was scoring multi-touchdown games, or in the games where he only had one touchdown, he had 100 yards. So I think Cook, what you have there is not bad. I do think you should push for a Brashard Smith. I do think you should push for Taj Brooks, players like that have the potential to outsource themselves above who is currently there. I wouldn't mind Omarion here. I know it's a little high.
Dude, Omarion's in a shit situation. There it goes anyway. This is gonna be Harvey then Metcalf.
I'm okay with Harvey.
Because Harvey is the best running back on the board. I am out on Mixon, Kamara. And I like Harvey more than Walker.
I mean, I'm in on Mixon, Kamara, and Walker at value. I do think it's a little much for Kamara right now. I don't think it's much for.
I don't want Kamara at all, and I'm not in on Mixon. I mean, I get that there's an argument I should be, but I'm not. And I do want to go with Metcalf, given that he is now the dude, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, if JMO would have been there on the comeback, I would have really wanted JMO.
Here's your choice: Metcalf, Hubbard, or Walker. Who do you want?
I like Metcalf. I think Steelers' number one wide receiver, regardless of quarterback situation, is most likely guaranteed 80.
No number two anymore. It's
no
number two.
I'm not saying the production is going to be great, but the volume is going to be there, and that's something that I'm willing to buy into. I do think it's going to be
a volume game at the end of the day.
Coming back in the 6th round, though, I mean, our running backs are going to be really weak. So
yeah, no, there's no doubt we're going to play some. We're going to do something I hate doing, and this because we took Allen. We're going to be trying to beg and jump on, the Trey Bensons of the world, man. I mean, that's just
and that's going to be later. I think it would be really nice to push for another wide receiver there. But we'll get there.
I think we got to go running back.
I don't think the value is going to. I don't think the value.
In an ideal world, that's what I would like to see.
Here's the pick.
That's what I say. That's what I meant by ideal world. We got to see.
at in that sixth round, at pick 71, that's going to be Caleb Johnson. We're going to take Caleb Johnson there. Now,
Yeah.
if you want on the
Unless
comeback
someone
from
like
that,
Henderson or Judkins falls.
if you want on the comeback from that, Judkins will probably be there too. So this will be a room with 3 rookie running backs, or you can take a stab at a guy like Pacheco a little bit later or a little bit earlier. What?
I said I'm okay with the rookies. Pacheco's ADP is 96, so that would be two turns from now.
So family, when we talk about Dell,
you know,
from a dynasty perspective, how I feel about Dell is that he's had multiple catastrophic injuries, and the guy's a great player. But the fact of the matter is that Houston showed their hand as a team. They went out and they bought 2 younger wide receivers without significant injuries. So for me, Dell isn't a buy unless you're getting him absolutely at the most tank value that you can get, and then just putting him on your taxi squad or your
you have to have an IR spot to just sit him at. Because if not, what's going to happen, family? You're going to have a need for a player, and Tank Dell's going to be injured. Johnson. And if you don't have the IR spot, you're going to end up cutting him anyway because he's not playing this year.
Breece Hall was sniped ahead of me when I took Cook, and that sucks. I actually like Cook a little bit better than Breece. I think that Cook is in a more proficient offense that will lead to more red zone carries, and I'm okay with that. I like that a lot. Breece Hall can make his own space. James Cook could as well, but I am all for Cook over Hall if I was taking one of the other. Brooks Wright and my favorite option or Mason are up top. I would take Mason for the same reason that I said to you. I don't believe that Minnesota will have a lot of struggles moving the ball. I do think what the coaches have said to us is that he is going to be a cog in the machine. A critical role will be in the red zone. And if you can say that he's going to get 40 yards and a touchdown in a week, that's 10 points. I mean, okay, that's okay for a running back 4. I mean, not bad at all. There goes Judkins. Where Freiermuth goes, definitely a good tight end now for backfield. Absolutely. I mean, we were pushing guys like Freiermuth a little bit earlier when we could because of that influx situation. Freiermuth last year had good tight end numbers overall on a game-by-game basis, maybe not the best. With a young quarterback, if they decide to stay with the young quarterbacks, he could see a lot of targets. And he's definitely an interesting option if you were to own DK and stuff like that. If I was taking Dell, I wouldn't take him until way, way late. Like, I mean, we're talking like if you're thinking about Cole Kmet or Tank Dell in a dynasty, I'd be on Tank Dell. If you said I had to drink like a bowl of cockroaches if I didn't pick, I would choose Dell over a guy like Cole Kmet. Over other rookies, maybe not. So hopefully Caleb Johnson.
Definitely over Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet's dead to you, and he shouldn't even be considered anymore.
Now Caleb Johnson,
not enough targets to make him viable.
Caleb Johnson's about to come up. Hopefully he stays.
Oh yeah, he better be this pick. I thought he was going to go to that guy. I thought he was going to go to number 5. Taking a 5th receiver in the first 6 rounds is bad.
All right, let me just.
It's just bad. I mean, I can't say that enough. It says that I failed on one of my first picks, and if you're walking into this thinking you're failing on one of your early picks, you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm with you on that. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I keep saying that over and over and over again. It just doesn't make any sense.
See, Bob, I'm going Waddle here.
Waddle? Yeah, absolutely.
I'm thinking Waddle. Yeah.
Waddle has, again,
Waddle in the 7th feels like a steal.
I like where your head's at because you've got divisional correlation. You have a receiver on the comeback for the Jets.
Oh, yeah, we do. We got the whole East, don't we?
On the comeback for Waddle. To be honest with you, if we didn't get Justin Fields, I'm not mad. If you want to go after Drake May and get a little bit of the Drake May / Top Douglas or whatever wide receiver you want to go with there.
If we can get Fields could run his way. No, Fields could simultaneously run his way into a top 5.
And I just want to, family here, I want to just point out, Joe, can you go to this 8th team really quickly? Because family and you both pointed out, and I just want to talk through this. Also, we have Josh Allen, so I want Josh Palmer on this team, and I want Dalton Kincaid. Those are the 2 guys I want from, or Keon Coleman and Kincaid. But
you don't want. See, I like Coleman more than you. But the problem is Kincaid and Coleman go next to each other. So I'm cool with Kincaid. I'm totally cool with Kincaid. I think that he's the last tight end on the tier.
When we look at this team, okay, number 8 is doing what a lot of people are doing when they dive into this best ball mania, any big money contest, is that,
quite frankly, number 7's asinine too, by the way.
When we look at the research out there, the research tells us that wide receivers are important. And that is absolutely true. You want to have enough wide receivers to be at least more than half of what the starting positions are. In this contest, because it's PPR, you want wide receivers that are going to really excel. Now, when you take Rice, you have a problem because it predicates that when you take Rice, you are almost in a way assuming the worst and assuming the best. So when you assume the worst, you're saying he's going to get suspended. So I'm going to have to take another wide receiver. So that makes sense with the Devontae.
You think with Devontae and Ridley?
And what I'm saying is, when you come back at Sutton and Ridley, if you're doing this strategy and you're taking 5 wide receivers to start, you have to make a concerted effort to take another position of value, because you are now saying to your own self that I have taken in the first, and he takes another wide receiver with George Pickens. So 7 wide receivers. He's screwing everybody else, but he's screwing himself the most. You look at it, and then Bo Nix with Sutton. You're looking at it and you're saying, I am not going to be starting 3 of those wide receivers of my first 7 picks. You cannot do that to yourself.
Bob, I know you're on the steamer. Did Washington draft a running back? Because I don't think they did.
Which one?
The Redskins.
Brian Robinson might get traded. So,
but
if you want to roll Brian
Robinson, if he gets traded, he's going to be traded as a starter.
They also took Ja'Cory Croskett-Merritt, I believe, as a later round pick. If you want to take B-Rob, B-Rob, he's not my favorite. But I'd rather have. You could talk me into Pacheco here. I don't like him either, but you could talk me into it. Because he's still on the team, still has a role, maybe. This is a good time.
Well, Pacheco's not going to make the turn.
It's a good time.
I think I go Pacheco then Fields.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, I mean,
right, I will take the argument of Pacheco over B-Rob.
This is wild. I mean, 7th. I'm not going wild for Pacheco or B-Rob, and I'm not overutilizing them in my teams. But I don't like B-Rob because of Jane Daniels and the presence of Debo. But I still could talk myself into.
We don't even make that pick anymore. There he goes.
He talks back healthy. But that 7 wide receivers is nuts. I mean, that. I'm really curious what that team's going to shake out to be. There's going to be a lot of. He's going to roll 6 straight, and this is why I hate it the most, is because
you know what that team is. That team's a waste of $20.
He's going to roll out 5 straight wide receivers, which is going to be absurd, or 5 straight running backs.
5 straight running backs.
It's going to be nuts.
Yeah.
And now, all the viewers, so Joe and I are not huge on Isaiah Pacheco going into this year. But all things considered, when we look at the lay of the land in this round, guys like Swift seem to have kept his job for right now. Guys like Tracy probably sticking around for a little bit longer. Guys like B-Rob potentially sticking around more. And Pacheco, they got Brashard Smith, and they still have Elijah Mitchell, but they're still going to stick around more. And I think the Chiefs are waiting to see what happens. And the fact of the matter is that the Chiefs should still move the ball down the field. Pacheco's not the best within the red zone, but he's definitely not, objectionable when we're looking at guys in the 8th round. And this is a veritable difference from our opinion in the early best ball drafts because we were assuming that they were going to go out and get somebody stronger, and they didn't. And the thing about Brashard Smith is a converted wide receiver. So you can easily see Brashard Smith taking on the role of Jerick McKinnon. And so having a guy that, that limits Pacheco's overall looks. But at this point in time, you're debating yourself between Pacheco and Warren part-time.
I don't think it does, because Pacheco always existed with that type of receiver around him, or running back around him. I think it's going to be basically same old
but
for Pacheco, which is better than 8th round value.
The jury is still out. I want to go back to your comment here, family, that you made a few iffy trades in my dynasty, but my first in 26 for Addison, Waddle, and a tanking team 2nd round in 26. That's my starting wide receivers. I like Addison and Waddle. I think, when we think about offenses, it might not be the best to say, oh, I've got 2 number 2 wide receivers. But they're very, very talented. And if things swing the right way for them, it could be really well.
If Tyreek isn't there, Waddle's the god.
And the thing is, when you're looking at these, when you're doing a draft, especially on DraftKings, and you're looking at 6 through 9 or 6 through 10, you want to look for value and take advantage of value elsewhere. So even if like that team number 8 still killing me with 7 wide receivers, even if you really believed in Sutton, Ridley, and Pickens, then believe in them and don't go out and get Devonta Smith. Believe in them and don't go out and get AJ Brown and then not even try to build Jalen Hurts. Like that to me is the weird. And then you go out and you get Bo Nix here in the 8th round. And now you're going to rattle off a bunch of running backs. You're probably going to go after ETN because you hear, oh, well, maybe he's going to go to Dallas. You're probably going to go out and get Bashal Tutin. You're probably going to go out and like this next pick it's most likely going to be 5 straight running backs unless a tight end is scooped in there somewhere. I mean, Scadaboo was probably a target. Najee was probably one of his targets. The fall of Najee makes a lot of sense. Knowing what Omari on there, I think there's some value to capture with Najee back again, where he was being drafted really high prior. And I think there's some value right now with Najee, at least for the beginning of the season. Omarion will probably most likely the range as the season goes on, though.
So, as you know, I'm not very big on taking rookies blindly at the receiver spot, but now we know where they're at.
I like Trey Harris.
Higgins and Harris, to me, are the number 2s on their team. Who do you prefer, Trey Harris or Higgins? Higgins, obviously, in Houston, and Harris in the Chargers.
I like Trey because I think that Nico is an alpha. And I think that,
agree with that.
I think that when we look at the rapport that needs to be built, I see that already when we might not even get Trey. But when we look at what QJ already does well and what he doesn't do well, Trey Harris automatically can start. If he makes an impression, QJ will probably not see the field as much as he did last year. Because
QJ to me is already their number 3. The one who I think got screwed in this is Mike Williams.
Mike Williams definitely got screwed. They also went out and got Tyler Conklin in the tight end department. So they do have the weapons to move forward. The only thing that limits Trey Harris is I don't know where his touchdown come from. So Harris goes there.
I'm thinking the 2 Bills, Bob.
Yeah, if you want to roll Keon and Kincaid to go with Allen, I'm okay with that.
That's what I
also like Kyle Williams potentially with New England.
I'd rather have Coleman. Just stack up the quarterback. And that's because of this build, by the way. Coleman's one of my guys. I'm big on sophomore development. I mean, there's no way around that.
I'm really curious. Before we get to Family's comment here, I'm really curious. So we have Fields and we have Garrett Wilson. In this draft, can we please take a stab on Brandon Allen or Isaiah Davis? Because you don't believe in Brees, and predicating that you don't believe in Brees means that you should believe in one of those other running backs.
I don't, because they're Jets.
But strictly speaking, we need a running back, and they're not going to cost a lot, especially Davis. they're going to receive touches out of the backfield from Fields because Fields is not super proficient moving the ball deep downfield. He can, but he's not like super proficient at it. And what I'm saying to you is that if we bought Fields, would it make sense to buy the rookie tight end knowing that Tyler Conklin's gone and Mason Taylor later in the draft, or taking one of these short threats for Fields in the off chance that Fields has a good game? We don't believe in, it's not me. You don't believe in Brees. Knowing all that, it would make sense to take one of those three players in the back half of this draft.
I think at the end of the day, the Jets is going to be a overall low scoring offense, and all their fantasy points are going to go to Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall, and Fields. But that being said, Brees Hall has been injury dash, not one of the.
We need a running back. We have three. Braylon Allen.
I'll put Allen on the roster. He's maybe in terms of where we're going to pick him up, late round guy. Like he's a perfect home run like that. I'm going to go with Jalen Blue if he's still on the board with this pick, though.
So Scorpio, is Kupp still a good wide receiver to draft or not? I'm going with the nah, and here's why. On Monday, we kind of went into this a little bit, but we did do it a little bit more early on. Kupp, one of the primary reasons that I don't like Kupp is that he has had some significant injuries that he now looks very slow. And let's go back a couple seasons prior. Even this past season, he started off the season a little bit slowish, picked up steam when, with Puka gone, and then fell off a cliff. I can't forgive a guy, and this is just a non-fantasy analysis, but a personal analysis, is that I can't forgive a guy that when I'm fighting for a playoff spot, gives me zero. Like, just never in his career has gotten a zero before. I needed 2 catches.
Never forget.
Right? Same goes for Jane Reed. But when you look at Cooper Kupp and you're looking at the value around where Cooper Kupp is at and what you're looking at, you're saying to yourself, if you're saying Cooper Kupp is going to be successful this year, then you should be very high on Sam Darnold. And you should be very, very much lower on guys like Walker and Charbonnet. But he plays the same role as JSN. And I don't see a reason why you would want to take away that significant role that JSN thrived in to put a guy in who is much slower than JSN. He's sure-handed, of course, but there's most likely not going to be a decent amount of yak that JSN could potentially provide you. You're going to see a lot. They went out and they got a rookie wide receiver as well. They've got Marcus Valdez-Scantling. So the room is, has a lot of pieces.
Are they great? All the same body type, and they're all slots. That's the number one problem with Seattle. And so when you're asking about Kupp is going to be forced to have to try to play the outside, which he hasn't done in a very long time. So it comes down to this. If you believe Kupp is healthy enough to be an outside receiver, then yes, Kupp is a home run because he's not taking the slot away from JSN. So and Seattle has to believe that, or they never would have traded for him in the first place. So that's ultimately where I'm at looking at the situation. So I'm not sure I agree with the words coming out of my mouth, but that's the scenario that you would have to believe in if you wanted to go that direction.
But I think more so, like I said, more so what you have to believe is that he is capable of going back to say, let's just take a look at where Kupp falls here. Let me pull up some data here.
I'm probably going Hollywood here. Hollywood or Ray Davis? What do you want?
What?
Hollywood or Ray Davis?
Neither of them. They're both garbage. Take Hollywood.
You said Ray Davis before.
Take them. I mean, Hollywood is the law of diminishing return. Why'd you take Ray Davis? I didn't tell you to take Ray Davis.
You absolutely did when you were going through the whole running back.
I said Isaiah Davis. Ray Davis is absolutely useless.
Man, I messed that up.
Yeah, you fucked that up. He's absolutely useless.
I did.
You just took a backup running back that will only get touches, has no threat to be a red zone threat. That is a wasted pick. like a straight up.
And he's also a fifth running back.
Yeah, but
at least
now,
it's a mess up in the 13th round, not in the third round.
But now you screwed up the plan for running back, because now we're not going to take 7 running backs. So now we're stuck with Ray Davis.
No, we're not taking 6. We always take 6. We have 1 running back left.
I'm saying that the running back plan was a rookie, another rookie, plus one of the Jets. Now we're not doing that.
We already took Braylon Allen. Oh, Braylon Allen we're getting next round. He's on the board.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm so mad by that, because Ray Davis, again, what I said earlier about Cook is not true about Ray Davis. Okay. So, like, I want to get back to Scorpio's comment here about Cooper Kupp, and then I will go in on Ray Davis.
Which Davis were you talking about?
I was talking about the running back from the Jets, who was the third from. No,
I'm not taking 2 Jets running backs. I'm taking Braylon Allen.
I'm saying, that's why I mentioned. I said you could take Braylon Allen or Davis. Davis is going to be cheaper than Allen.
See, I heard Davis, and in my head, it's like we're already doing a bill stack. That's who he meant.
Ray Davis is a useless part of the Bills.
It just did not compute. It's the only justification, Bob. But we got 4 Bills now.
Yeah, and it's terrible. We got. I mean, this is what you don't want to do with Josh Allen, Joe. You don't.
Oh no! I know exactly what I want to do.
You don't want.
This is a standout, different lineup.
It's garbage. That's garbage. It's garbage.
See, I disagree with that. I don't want.
You can disagree. You can disagree. You can disagree as much as you want. But what I'm telling you right now is that Ray Davis is the equivalent of us drafting 6, 7 wide receivers. Okay.
Well, no, there's a giant difference. This is the 13th round.
But it's not a giant difference, because now we don't get Braylon Allen because you took Ray Davis.
We don't get Braylon Allen because we got taken. But for the record, there was no way in hell I was taking Braylon Edward or Braylon Allen with that pick.
Well, then
his
you're not reading the ADP.
Was 74.
You're not paying attention to what the people are doing. Braylon Allen is one of the targets. Look at Ramondre Stevenson's fall, by the way, 12th round.
Yeah. His ADP was 70, dude.
It doesn't matter. People are not slaves to that. So you look back in 2023, Scorpio, and you go back.
Hollywood comes back around, though. I'm taking Hollywood on this pick.
Why? Answer that question. Why?
Why do I believe in Hollywood?
Yeah.
Because he's going to be healthy now in the system, and it's still one of the best offenses in the league.
Rice.
And my choices are
Worthy.
Hollywood Brown, Tillman, or Hopkins.
I'd rather have a guy that's going to see targets than Tillman. I mean,
well, then Tillman it will be. It feels just so
Scorpio, I do want to finish on Cooper Kupp, I promise, but I'm so sidetracked right now by what Joe's doing to this draft. Let me say
this is going to be Tillman and Freiermuth, Bob, so you can calm down.
Take Freiermuth first. So what I was saying is about Hollywood. You look and you see Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce / Noah Gray. They also drafted Jalen Royals, who they're going to want to get going in the system, and Hollywood Brown. So at best, when every weapon is healthy and every weapon is not suspended, he is the 4th target. The fact that you want to keep pushing the narrative for Hollywood Brown is...
See, I don't think the rookie jumps him for one. I also think he's ahead of Noah Gray.
I didn't even say he's jumping him. I said Rice, Worthy.
Well, you are. You're saying he's the 4th target. I think he's...
Dude, look at my fingers.
Target.
Look. Rice, Worthy, Kelce, Hollywood. That's 4.
Rice ain't playing the first 6 games.
We don't have that
get out of the shit guy.
And remember, when we look at Hollywood, is Hollywood a good player? Sure. Hollywood is a good player. And you say, oh, well, yeah, I'm getting him low in this on a good offense. okay, great. Let me just read you. Let me just read you the stats from last year, just as a microcosm. Okay, is that you look? He played two games with the Chiefs until he got hurt again. He's always been an injury risk. 8 and 7 targets, 45 yards, 46 yards on 5 receptions on 4 receptions. I don't, unless that is true, that he's going to sit there or that Rice is going to be out, he's still going to have some issues with targets because Patrick Mahomes is no longer throwing it 40 times a game. So it's the same. If you hate the Chicago Bears wide receiver situation, I know that Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback than that. Then you
That's kind of the big difference.
You also can't love Hollywood's situation over a guy like Tillman, because even if whatever quarterback play is there, they're gonna have to throw the ball a decent amount. Kansas City doesn't have to do that, but if they did, it's still going to be a good target share to Kelsey. Remember, we talked about this last year in relation to the Chiefs, and it was one of the biggest issues about DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins is a great football player. He's older now, so he's slower, but he's still a great football player. And the fact is that target share in Kansas City was so stupidly condensed as the season went on.
They also were manipulating his snap count, so they didn't have to pay extra for him, though.
Yeah, but that was part of what the narrative was. But Hollywood Brown,
what they did.
Hollywood Brown is just a good enough wide receiver that if you get 50 catches out of him, sure, he's great value there. But I just can't get around him. Family, we'll get to team 8 in a moment. We'll get to team 8. But Scorpio, back to the task at hand with Cooper Kupp. One of the things that we have to look at and over the course of a couple of seasons, right, is that back in 2023, he only played in 12 games. So across 12 games, he was sitting at around 59 receptions, which was around 41st in the league. And he was averaging yards per reception around 12 yards per reception. Back in 2022, if we just take a look at 2022 for an example as well, he's sitting there, and let me refresh my screen here. Everything's going a little bit slower. So we look at Cooper Kupp and we say, okay, where are you at? He had 9 games played, 75 receptions, and was sitting there at 22nd overall in terms of receptions. So when you look at and you say this year, okay, he's been an injury risk for the past 3 seasons, significant injury risk for the past 3 seasons. He will, if you look at what they potentially want to do in Seattle, they just got a coach that should allow them to throw the ball a little bit more. You go in and you say they ran the ball, or not throw the ball a little bit more, to run the ball a little bit more because they overpassed last year. That was a fact. Ken Walker's numbers were atrocious because they weren't passing the ball enough. Or they weren't running the ball enough. They were passing the ball too much. So you look at it and say, those numbers are going to come down. Darnold was capable of supporting 2 really good, capable wide receivers because that line was good. Good enough, better than Seattle's, right? So then you look at it and say, okay, well, when I see the wide receiver numbers from 2024, and I'm looking at Kupp, and he was being drafted in the 7th round, what kind of stats am I kind of looking for in that market? Because we have to understand too that when we look at Cooper Kupp, he was sitting at 67 receptions on the whole last year, which was ranked 30th in the league. Wasn't a super threat for a good amount of touchdowns, right? Good enough, but not super threat. total of team targets was good enough, 710 yards. So you've got to think to yourself and say, okay, well, if I look at Kupp and then go up, Joe, to those wide receivers in the same round, do I think that Kupp will surpass 700 yards? Do I think that will happen? Do I think that Shakir is a better option to surpass 700 yards? Yes, I think that he's a better option. Is Pickens now a better chance to surpass 700 yards? Yes. Is Ricky Pearsall? Yes.
Yes.
Is Josh Downs? Potentially. Is Golden? Maybe. Ayuk?
I don't think
if
so.
he's healthy, maybe. I think that by the point in time that you are coming across Cooper Kupp, you are saying to yourself, I'm taking a wide receiver that has a significant known injury history that could rear its head, that is no longer young, who is on a team that is making it a point to not pass the ball as much as they did last year, if they can help it, and saying, okay, I went out and got Cooper Kupp, but he plays the same position well as another player on my team. So what was the reasoning for that? Well, I've seen him play a lot. Seattle plays the Rams all the time. And I asked myself, is that something that I want on my team? And the answer is no. By the time you're thinking about Cooper Kupp, you want to either have already built up your wide receiver room and wait on a guy like Darnell Mooney, wait on a guy like Bateman, wait on a guy like Trey Harris and Higgins, because Higgins and Harris both have the capability as Kupp to get past that 700 mark, and you can take them 3 rounds later. In Mooney, you can take him 2 rounds later. So if you are thinking about Kupp, you absolutely want to start building out a TJ Hawkinson or a Jonnu Smith better than that, because you can get that 700 yards from any one of those other wide receivers that was drafted in the next 3 to 4 rounds after him. Unless you believed he's a 1,000-yard wide receiver. I don't. And the stats don't back it up that he's going to be a 1,000-yard wide receiver anymore, knowing that he's going to most likely be injured for 4 games. You can't predict injuries, so you want to kind of have that in the back of your mind. But if Cooper Kupp had the most optimal season that he could have, sure, it's great value. But I can't see a reason why he would, going from an offense that peppered him with targets to an offense that's probably not going to pepper him as much. Does that make sense, Joe? I mean,
no. So I think that what we're seeing here is the beginning of Kupp through probably Mbuke, maybe Pittman. You're seeing a dead spot in receivers, and Kupp is clearly not in the tier of Pearsall and above him. And I would argue that Mooney should be ahead of the Packers guys. But that being said, the only way Kupp is successful is if he can play the outside. And Seattle knows that Njigba is a great slot, so they would not have made the trade for him had they thought he can't play the outside. So there is a certain degree of you trust the new coaching staff, you trust the you trust the new system to make the right decision, because there were better options out there, and that's who they chose. So in that regard, you gotta just trust the people who are making the decision.
Here's an even more telling stat. Okay, so when we look at like the things that you can kind of predict over the course of the year, targets is one of those things that tends to trend. Like if you're a good wide receiver, you're going to get targets, right? It tends to trend well over the course of a couple seasons. Family, we'll get to your question in a moment. But the fact that you just brought up the discussion about Darnell Mooney, Joe, I think is really interesting. So in the same conversation as Kupp, when it comes to targets, are the wide receivers of DK Metcalf, Demario Douglas, Calvin Ridley, Darnell Mooney. And Ridley is one of those guys that obviously I'd rather have over Kupp. But Darnell Mooney is in the same boat. Darnell Mooney had 64 targets, almost 992 yards. Wasn't a super duper threat for touchdowns. But you look at it and you say, all right, well, what's going well here? Well, he is the number 2 on a team that has a healthy running game, that has a decent enough offensive line, with a quarterback who is learning the ropes and throwing the ball. So Darnell Mooney, 2 rounds later, can give you similar-ish value as Cooper Kupp. So I don't see a reason why you would want to do that, especially knowing that, say, I could take Hawkinson, or I can take Jonnu, or I can take Evan Ingram, and then still get Darnell Mooney a round or 2 later. I don't see an absolute reason. I mean, and sorry for the aside, but I just don't see a reason to do it. Even though Cooper Kupp is a very good player, I don't see a framework that on this team, on this specific iteration of the team, because you look at it, when Puka came back, Joe, you look at weeks, I'm going to look at week 13 to week 17. Okay. So that's around the time Puka came back. I think Puka came back in that Philly game, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Sounds right.
After that, he went from the first game of the season, 21 targets, because Puka was out, to 6, then being injured 4 games, then 8, 14, 7, 10, 11. Now, this is when Puka came back. He goes back to 6, 8, 3, 3, 3. And yeah. I don't see that definitely improving. Joe, scroll down. We can't see the rest of the board.
Well, you wanted me to
yeah, sorry. Go back
down.
Up
there, so I went up there.
Will saying
here's
he
the
can't
conclusion of the draft here.
So looking at the board, we were just looking at Team 8 for a minute there, family. But looking at this draft board, seeing the picks that have transpired since we got into that discussion about Cooper Kupp, we're seeing I don't like the Schultz pick. I think that's not a good pick.
Then we got to talk about Schultz, because I actually think that's a steal that I got. So here's the reason I think Schultz is a steal. You can go on the negative after the fact.
Sorry, Will. Sorry, family. Sorry, everybody in the chat. We were going to talk about Team 8 for a minute, and I just got super sidetracked by Cooper Kupp, as often happens.
Right, do you want to talk about Schultz or Team 8?
Well, I want to talk about the back end of Team 8, because they did exactly what I thought they were going to do, which is load up on these back end running backs. And they did that.
Yeah, they got 2 number 3s, 3 number 3s on their roster.
One of the things though, Woody Marks isn't a bad pick. If I'm in the 20th round and I'm not liking Joe Mixon's future, Woody Marks was invested with high draft capital. And Dameon Pierce may not be long for Houston. I like Woody Marks. Devin Neal is a play that if you don't believe in Kendre and you don't believe in Kamara, okay. And Jaquez Hunter, I'm not for this year. I know a lot of people are for Jaquez this year, but I'm not. This year, I'm not taking him a lot. But if we look at that totality of that team and we read off that running back room, so there's going to have to be a lot of.
See if he has any above Shipley. Oh, so he
has Javonte, Spears, and Benson. In order for this running, none of those players outside of Javonte Williams and Mason, again, these are all kind of hitting and hoping running backs that they're going to have to pop off a 20-point game. We look at Benson. The Cardinals are constructed around, Connor kind of pounding the rock and Kyler doing what Kyler does. Benson's a good pick, but only a good pick if you kind of have a solidified room a bit.
That's the second best running back.
You're looking for a high upside kind of guy. Spears, I like, but I like him in the capacity that, you pair him with 2 already good running backs, knowing his injury history. I wouldn't pair him with Mason and Williams. Now, going down, Joe, as we look at Team 8, because Team 8 started, William, if you didn't know, Team 8 started 7 wide receivers. And then you come down and say,
only took those 7 receivers.
Will Shipley, had some nice looks in that playoff game, but again, he is firmly behind Saquon. Jarquez is firmly behind Kyron. Devin Neal is firmly behind Kamara at this point in time, and the same goes for Audric Estime with potentially RJ Harvey. Now, I'm not saying not to load up on running backs late, but what I am saying is that if you're going to do that, you want to have your running back room. You want to have the top 2 be really good. So like why I say that is like, I've been doing this in Underdog a lot and on DraftKings, where I'll take Achane and RJ Harvey, right? Take Achane and RJ Harvey, maybe take another guy like Pacheco in those middle rounds, and then just fly through and take a bunch of these guys, because they could turn out. You can do that strategy, but you can't do that strategy with Mason. You can't do that because Mason on a given week, his top points might only top off, like we were saying, around 14, 15 points. So you're automatically putting yourself behind the 8 ball, and you don't have a threat, conceivably speaking, for 20 points. I mean, Javonte Williams, since the injury, has only maybe gotten over 20 points one time. And the way that he did that was through catching passes. They just went out there and got Jadon Blue, who can do the same thing. I mean, I don't see a reason why the pairing of that, it's just rough. And Bones, you're exactly right. Just drafted by position. I mean, it's rough to look at a team like that and say, like, you really don't have it. When you do that, you really don't have a chance to make it to the next round. You really don't have it to the next round. When you look at hoping for 5 stud running backs to go on the IR is absolutely absurd. I mean, you got to say, okay, maybe 1, maybe 2. And there has been seasons where a bunch of guys get hurt. But
no, in that regards, he's just playing the lottery and just hoping. He's just buying a lot of tickets for the lottery. That's his entire hope.
What I'm saying is, if you're going to play the lottery, at least go into it knowing that you have
the guys who are the second tier. That, Bobby, to your point is, you don't take Hunter, who's the 3rd tier guy, when Braylon Smith is out there, who is also not just the number 2, he's the number 1 catching back.
You mean Brashard? Yeah, Brashard.
Yeah, Brashard Smith is their 3rd down back today.
Like, I mean,
what are you doing?
Yeah. And going across the last of these picks and just taking a look at some of these combinations, because some of these combinations are ones that I think that from now until we get to maybe like June or July, until we get to camp season and we see these OTAs and we see these rookie workouts, that we're going to see a lot of Tesla. We're going to see a lot of Pat Bryant. Draft capital is a real thing, guys. We talk about it all the time. But a guy like Tesla right now is conceivably.
We got to start working Thornton in more, Bob, because he could easily become one of the top 2 receivers in Vegas.
About Thornton in the early best balls, but to Tesla for a moment, he is conceivably the 6th option on this team. And we know that Khalif Raymond, we tried to make Khalif Raymond a thing in the lower rounds last year.
Yeah, they paid him like he's a thing.
And I just can't. And knowing that he is like the 5th, 6th target on this team, and is going to need 2 injuries to kind of make an impression.
See, that's why I like Thornton more.
I'm not in on the Tesla bus
out of camp as one of the top 2 in Vegas, and Tesla doesn't have a chance.
Pat Bryant, right? Pat Bryant is potentially behind Mims, potentially behind Troy Franklin, potentially behind Evan Ingram, potentially behind, definitely behind Cortland Sutton.
Oh, yeah.
So you look at it and you say, do you want the 5th option? How often does the 5th option how much does that lottery ticket actually pay off? Where's the path? Like when you're taking these guys, you got to say, where's the pathway for success? So the Taj Brooks pick for most people would be like, okay, well, you see, they still have Zach.
I think he can beat Brown out in camp.
He has Brown is there. I don't think that that's true right off the gate, but you have Brown, who is going
to like Brown more than me. I don't like him at all.
Moss, who's coming back from a significant neck injury. You have Samaje Perine, who has been around for years. Why would they want to continue to go with these retreads when they have a rookie there that can do the same things as the retreads can? Maybe you'll see Zach Moss a little bit earlier in the season, but as the season goes on, they're probably going to work in a little bit more Taj Brooks, less room to fight with. A lot of targets on that team as well. You come in and you look at Brashard Smith. Brashard Smith's a running back that you could definitely see targets for almost immediately.
He's getting at least 50 targets this year.
Roschon Johnson. We know that Roschon has been, most of the fantasy community has been trying to communicate that Roschon Johnson could be a thing, but the opportunities given to him haven't been great. Will Ben Johnson do that?
Roschon Johnson's not going to be a thing.
But again, the path, like looking at the pathway,
he had the same pathway last year, and they never gave him the ball. I was so upset the whole season. Roschon Johnson is one of those he's dead to me guys. Never forget.
I get that, but if you're arguing me, what's the pathway for Roschon Johnson versus Jacques?
It's definitely better than Estimate. Like, I'm not fighting.
Roschon has an easier pathway. Estimate got beat out by Tyler Beatty at some points during the year last year. So Estimate isn't like a legit threat.
Estimate's like guaranteed to make the 53-man roster.
Justice Hill at that point in time in a PPR league is a better option. You're looking at these guys and you're saying, well, where's the pathway for success?
So not only did he draft only by position, he drafted poorly only by position.
But I'm not even saying like going off of team 8 and just focusing a little bit on what's down here and saying, where is my pathway? If my guy plays, where's the pathway? Does he already have a role?
Dude, Brooks and Smith are going to end up going in the 15th round by the time that we get to
it's just an interesting, when we look at this back end, people are looking for their stacks, which make a lot of sense, and people are looking for pathways for success. The reason why I like Terrence Ferguson, now I'm not saying that I'm going to take him all the time, but I am saying that a guy like Terrence Ferguson, I'm okay taking as a tight end 2 or, in a tight end backfill strategy. Because again, they invested the capital in him. They invested. We know that the tight end, when healthy, can be successful in a McVay offense. We know that, and so the pathway there, it's there. There is a strong pathway that Ferguson can beat out Higbee. You're taking him after Higbee, and the targets are going to be there. Arroyo, the targets can be there. He could beat out.
I don't believe in the rookies, man. The rookie
he could beat out Noah Fant. I'm just speaking in general about these last picks here, right? Ray McLeod. Okay,
Ray McLeod produced some 20+ weeks last week. That's a great 20th round pickup.
Tyler Lockett, probably not.
Nope.
Tank Dell, I'm not wasting a spot on a guy, like I said, that had a significant injury, probably not coming back. Kelvin Austin, even a better. He's a better pick than a guy like Tesla, and it's 2 rounds later. So I'm just saying, like, you look at it and you say, where's the pathway? Coker kind of got dropped a little bit because of Tet and Thielen's still there. But again,
I think Coker might be a better football player than Leggett. I got that feeling watching tape.
To believe that. And family, that's what I'm saying is
to show it. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying is Ben Johnson and the coaching staff of Detroit straight up during that draft, where they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs. And everybody said, why you draft Jahmyr Gibbs? You have DeAndre Swift. And then trade DeAndre Swift. So Ben Johnson already probably had something in Deuce Staley. Ben Johnson already had something in the pipeline to say, I don't really want to work with DeAndre Swift because I have better talent. If they recognize in camp that Monangai or that Roschon has a good looks, I'm not saying that Swift is going to be totally, useless, but his inefficiency is his inefficiency is a problem. And will they give Roschon more reps? There is a pathway, a strong pathway for a guy like Roschon to make his way to be a thing this year. And you're getting him down here in the 18th round. I think that when all things are said and done, go back up to the top of the draft, Joe. When all things are said and done, what we're kind of seeing as we go through the framework of these draft, when we go up through, if you're going to take darts, Monangai had to be one of your darts, not Estime, right?
Yeah.
As we go up through this draft, I think what you're going to see from most people going out right now is that there are going to be a lot of drafters that you're going to be drafting with that it's very apparent that people will want and feel very comfortable, and it is a sound strategy. It's one that we've talked about a lot, that by the end of the 6th round, you need or you should have 2 running backs or at least a plan to get a second one very soon. The framework of taking 4 running backs early, I don't like. I don't see a benefit to doing that immediately, especially in the first 3 rounds. I think you're giving up a lot of wide receiver value when you go 3 running backs early. And if that's going to be what you do, you should not take another one until you hit like the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th round and start throwing your darts. Because if you're taking that 4th running back early, it's the same strategy as taking 7 wide receivers. You're betting, you're putting your money and saying, one of these guys is not going to work every week. One of these guys is going to be hurt. So ideally, in these first 6 rounds, and we'll be doing another draft next week as well on Monday, but out of these first 6 rounds, you need to come out with 2 running backs minimum, or have a plan to take a running back in the 7th. We
came out with the 2 running backs minimum.
Tell me what team 5 got as their 2nd running back. I assume they took him in round 7 or round 8. Aaron Jones. Yeah, exactly. Have a plan if you're going to do it. Like going across to team number 9. Can we just take a look at team number 9 as we wrap up? You look at team 9. They went 4 wide receivers early. You can start 4 wide receivers.
Team 9 has a very breakable team.
So
a lot of injury risk on that roster.
It's breakable, but again, assuming that everybody's healthy, that team has 4 wide receivers that are 20 plus.
That team will dominate in September,
right? 20 plus point getters in a week. You look at the running backs, stable. You look at team 10, and this is another thing you don't want to do. Team 10 waited too long for the wide receivers. So you look at team 10,
3 onesie positions.
Team 10 went up and said, you know what? I know my wide receivers suck. So I am going to say, I'm going to build 2 tight ends. And you can do that. Like I said at the top of the show, I went out in one of my schnauzers and I picked Kittle in the 4th and Sam Laporta in the 5th. But what I would caution you to do, if you're going to do that, stack the quarterback. I don't recommend it. It's only something I'm going to do every once in a while.
Yeah, an unstacked Burrow makes no sense.
Stack the quarterback. He has Chase Brown, okay. But this doesn't make any sense because you're not going out there and getting Goff most likely. I don't know if he got Goff. And you probably don't want Geno because you went out and you took Burrow. So taking these 2 tight ends at the detriment of your wide receivers, and now rolling out as your wide receivers, Golden and Mooney as your top 2, you waited too long. If you don't have at least 3 wide receivers by the end of round 7, you are shooting so many darts, and it's an insane. You're going to have a lot of Alec Pierce in your portfolio. You're going to have a lot of Shaheeds. You're going to have a lot of guys like Hollywood Brown. Again, guys that could hit, but your stability is really kind of thrown to the wind. You look at team 4 here. When you look at team 4, and Family said here he looks sane in comparison to team 8. Absolutely, it does. You're going out there, you get 2 onesies, which is fine if you want to do it that way. Build your team out. You have the potential to go really, really, really heavy into a position. But what I caution you on is that when you do the double onesies, never do a triple onesie. Never do a triple onesie.
No, and that's what number 10 did.
If you're going to do the double onesie, make sure that that position will finish or has a chance to finish number 1.
Yeah.
Right.
Like Josh Allen can finish number one. We've seen it a lot. It's going to happen again.
Exactly. Let's get through some of these comments, Joe, before we go. So Team 8, Team 10 and Team 8 could make two goods if they redrafted together. I mean, they could. Back-end running backs are insane. Back-ending wide receivers, you could understand. Adding 10 wide receivers in the last 10 rounds could work. I mean, it could.
Well, family, I need to disagree with that. And here's my point. If you're going to go insane, it's better to go insane where you're all in on the running backs at the end. And the reason for that is a unproven receiver can get completely removed from the game plan. Like they just won't throw it to them. They'll throw it to someone else. But a running game cannot get 100% turned off. If that is the only man left standing, they will give them the ball. If you are down to your number 4 receiver, they'll just throw it to the tight end. So you're more guaranteed if the minefield of injuries hit as a running back to benefit from it in a downward vertical points go down because you're the next step on depth chart where a receiver goes more horizontal to other positions. Again, I do not agree with what happened. But if you are going to do it, it's better to be what number 8 did than what number 9 did, 8 did than what number 7 did. Because number 7 taking 4 running backs in the first 5 rounds is equally horrendous. I would actually argue.
I want to comment on this, Joe, because family brought up that wide receiver 3s are on the field and running back 3s are on the bench. This is not always true. This is not always true because wide receiver 3s can also be on the bench depending on the personnel setting. But what I want to be clear on too is that some wide receivers that they're not the wide receiver 3. For example, right? If you get drafted to the Jets and you play the exact same role as Garrett Wilson, you are only seeing the field when Garrett Wilson can't be on the field.
Yeah, that's Westbrook and Keeney. Yeah.
And so when you look at things and you say to yourself, okay, like where does that rule fit? When you're taking those chances on those rookie wide receivers, I would be taking more chances on rookie wide receivers that are playing behind wide receivers that are often injured. That's what I'm looking for.
That's what we value a Keeney late.
If I'm doing that, that's what I'm doing. I'm taking more stabs on a guy like Marquise Valdez-Scantling because they don't have an over-the-top threat. Even though Marquise Valdez-Scantling is like the 4th option, if they want to move the ball downfield, he is the wide receiver threat to get a deep ball. These other guys on Seattle aren't really into that deep ball right now. When it comes to the running back 3s, yes, those running back 3s are going to be on the bench. They are not going to see a role. But a wide receiver 3-4 production is also not cracking your lineup if you've built your lineup with Ladd, Amon-Ra, Tyreek, and Evans. So what those dart throws are becoming is that, okay, looking at the lineup, and that's why I went into it discussing, because it's really important when you're buying those lottery tickets to look at the pathways, right? You want to look at the pathways for their playing time and for their game. That's why I said I am less likely to take a lottery ticket on on Tesla, because his pathway for playing time is going to be significantly hard to come by.
Using Tesla as example, realistically speaking, if they get enough injuries, say JMO goes down and Amon-Ra goes down, are they forcing the ball to Tesla, or are they handing the ball off to Monty and Gibbs 500 times? Realistically speaking, that's why I'm more on board with the late long shot of the running backs than the receivers.
And Joe, to the point family was making, he said that, I'm saying if you were crazy and took 10 wide receivers in the last 10 rounds, you just need 2 or 3 to hit a week. Yeah.
True. It's also true with running backs though.
You are, but to family's point, and I agree with you on this, family, is that to your point, it is more likely if you're taking 10 wide receivers and a bunch of them are wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 3s, situational wide receivers, that they could score a point over a running back that is almost guaranteed to be on the bench. I see the reasoning there. I understand that, and I'm with you. Like, would I rather take Kayshon Boutte or would I rather take Woody Marks? You can make an argument for both of them depending upon your team construction, and that makes.
So I guess this is the argument too here, family. The point is that early in the year, before injuries occur, the receivers give you more likely of something because those running backs are zeros until injuries start clicking in. However, after the injuries click in,
be a zero. Yeah.
After the injuries click in, they could be a home run. The receiver just is going to be the same standard 3 to 9 points every week. And that's the difference.
Yeah, I mean, I fully understand that. And just let's hit this final.
This is why number 7 will never get out of the first round. They need the injury to happen in training camp when everyone's, babying their guys. He will, even if his system plays out in ideal world, it'll take too long for him to make up the delta in points because he has no real running backs. He's losing ground every week until week 6. It just ain't gonna happen.
You know what? I want to get to Bones' comment, but family, you can convince me. We'll probably do it. Maybe not in the big money, but we'll find one of those.
But we're doing it with big money. We're all, guys. That's one thing we're telling you this year is a commitment of local football flavor. We are only doing the Mega Millions on the air.
This is what I'm going to do.
When we're on the air, we're only doing Mega Millions. We're doing Mega Millions off air as well, but we're only doing Mega Millions when we're live.
When my son goes to sleep tonight, family, before we get to Bones' comment, when my son goes to sleep tonight, I am going to hit Underdog. Pardon me. Open up my Schnauzer. And I am going to.
Underdog's easier because it's round 9 is when you would start.
I am going to not take a wide receiver till round 9. I have built so many teams, so many unique teams. I love the fact that we get these ideas and try them out. I want to see what it looks like.
This is possibly my favorite team so far. And it's all because you told me to take Garrett Wilson in the 2nd round and Allen in the 3rd. And the reason is I wouldn't have wanted Adams instead of Wilson. And my fear always with taking the quarterback high is that you don't get a good starting lineup. But our 3 receivers are set. We're a little bit light at running back, but Waddle was our flex. Our starting lineup is dominant. And then we got Kittle, or Kincaid rather, as our tight end. I love this team. This is a team we will not be able to build in August.
My picture's blocking it. What was the final makeup here for the team?
The final makeup is 2-7-8-3.
2-7-8-3. So a little bit heavy on the running backs, but it's still.
Yeah, I made up for it when I took Ray Davis.
It's fine.
If you take Ray Davis off of this lineup, it's a normal lineup, by the way.
Yeah. So actually, I want to get to that Bones comment, but family, on DraftKings, it's still 20 rounds. So on DraftKings,
we do DraftKings. This was DraftKings today.
Rounds. On Underdog, it's only 18. So you're baking in 2 more positions, which is nice. Bones, when it comes to that, I agree with you. One of the things that's really dangerous, and I'm not sure if this is what you were going for with this comment, but one of the things that's really dangerous is that, and we've seen it when we've built teams with Tampa stacks and when we built teams with potentially Detroit stacks, is having your number 1 and number 2 wide receiver be from the same team.
You don't want that.
So go down a little bit on team 3. I want to see 3-4, and I want to make sure that he got JJ McCarthy. Even though he has Jalen Hurts, I want to make sure he got JJ McCarthy. So Myers is okay. Downs is okay. Trey Harris, love that. Beck, okay. And he got JJ McCarthy. So what you're looking at here is that so here's the thing. If you're taking both JJ and Addison and McCarthy, and you're putting them as your top 2 wide receivers, what you are saying, and this is the narrative that you are saying in your brain, is that they're going to ball out this year. If I have my number 1,
they probably are.
But here's what I'm saying, is if I do that, then I don't need to necessitate Jalen Hurts into my lineup. Because if I'm taking the number one, and this is the reasoning behind Jamar Chase, T. Higgins.
Dude, I'm also low on Hurts. When's the second round of the owners meeting? I think that's Friday, and they could be outlawing the tush push.
I'm low on Hurts. I think
if tush push is gone, I'm low.
When Hurts went, one of the things that I think that is important to know is that Hurts at the value there is pretty good. But knowing that you took Addison, knowing that you took J-Jeff, again, the 2 wide receivers from the team, the top 2 wide receivers, and those are your first 2 wide receivers, you're believing, right? You're writing yourself and saying they're going to be the best. And if I'm taking him as my 1-2, that means that Addison is going to have to be scoring 15 plus points or higher. And Justin Jefferson is going to have to score 20 plus points or higher. So having all that considered, if that's happening, then you're looking at multi-touchdowns for both of those wide receivers. Every week is the narrative you would write yourself, and 70 plus yards a game. And if that happens, JJ's balling out, and you don't need Jalen Hurts. What I'm saying is that could have went somewhere else. So that's the other thing to be aware of. If you're taking 2 wide receivers from the same team, then and you're taking them with high priority picks, especially a first round pick, like if I'm taking Puka and I'm taking Devontae, then I'm not even looking at any other quarterback. I'm not looking at any other quarterback until Matt Stafford. And I know that's weird to say, but if that's the narrative you're writing for that specific team, that's the belief system you're going in with. Some people are going to disagree with that. But it's
Bob, we should do that one day. We should have belief systems on like a pinball and just have them roll out. Like we'll do like 5 belief systems for we'll just do this as guys. We'll give you guys a homework assignment. Give us in the comments belief systems you would like us to see to talk about. The San Francisco's not going to recover, or Murray's finally going to learn how to watch tape, or something. Just give us 5 random
believable things. Believable things.
I don't care about
Murray's not going to watch tape.
We got to fill in 100 drafts between now and the end of August. We will do this. That's what we're asking as homework assignment, guys. Put them in the comments. You got now till Monday.
I like it. It's a big brain move. And family, it's disappointing to miss out on Mason. I love it.
Dude,
Bones.
Unbelievable on the bats, Bones. I love it.
Bones, quite frankly,
we'll do it.
Listen up. If the
Pats are contenders, Travion Henderson got to be on your roster.
Joe, if we're doing a back end wide receivers and starting them in the 7th, 8th, 9th round,
you have to believe the Patriots are contenders.
That's a Pats build if I've ever seen one in my entire life. Family here.
So that's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to do just best ball drafts with a theme that may or may not be believable. Look
at this. I like this. We've done a couple teams with this. Richardson will benefit from Josh Allen's trainer. If that's the belief system in there, then I am forcing Taylor a little bit higher up the board. I'm pushing in Downs and Warren, or Pittman and Warren a little bit more, and then I'm back-ending it with Adonai Mitchell. Like, these are all kind of conversations.
I'd rather go Pierce than Mitchell, but core concept, I'm with you.
Fine. Pierce is great, too, in an option like that. I mean, guys, we're going to be rolling out episodes
We're
Monday.
doing this all summer long, guys. Keep shooting them at it.
Staying healthy, all that stuff. So we're going to be back Monday, 3:45 Eastern Standard Time with another draft. Keep leaving the comments. Keep liking. Share with your friends. Like, subscribe, follow. We'll be with you guys on Monday, 3:45 Eastern. Peace out.